Death is a lie, it's just energy transfer. Death is a lie, it's just energy transfer. 'Cause we're all alive, it's just energy transfer. We're all alive. In this moment in time, it's just energy transfer. Reach in your mind, it's all energy transfer. It's all alive, we're all alive.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Mind, Body, and Monkh. And today is another special episode with my dude, 18 and counting. How you doing, my man?
Feeling good today, man.
Feeling good?
Yeah, just like, got that good grind energy going right now.
There you go. I mean, it's the time of year, spring. We're coming out of a pandemic, I think. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I think everybody's kind of like, well, we just want to get out and start whatever. But, I feel like that's the general vibe, at least in St. Louis here,
Oh, yeah, everybody's ready. I've been having good conversations with folks about, spring and summertime music predictions and what the scene is going to be like.
Right.
So I'm ready to see it,
Yeah, it's hard to tell at this point in time because you just never know. But you've been playing in this area for a long time as well as I. Like, we always outcome any circumstance.
Oh, yeah.
Something always happens that just makes the area better and stronger. So
yeah,
I got faith in all of that.
Yeah, it's just classic, just adjusting to any kind of tragedy or any kind of downfall. So, the creative ones are gonna figure out something. It can't be stopped.
Yeah.
That's in a weird way. Sometimes it becomes a test of who's fit for it, who wants it.
Yeah.
And also sometimes it's just rest. I think a lot of people have been talking about that too. Like,
Yeah.
I certainly felt that. I was
Yes.
like, oh yeah, I gotta stay home.
Yep.
Tired. I know what to do with that.
Exactly. It was like a forced rest. I know, and here this is a spiritual podcast, but this is what happens when you put two musicians in a room with microphones. It's just music regardless. But that's what happened too. I had a whole album ready beginning of last year, and pandemic hit, and I was like, you know what? Let me rewrite all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much is what it was. But anyway, man, let's get into some cold questions over here.
Yeah.
So, man, you've been playing out for a long time in St. Louis area.
Yeah.
I'm sure beyond. But I don't think I've ever known this. Like, how did you get the name 18 and counting?
Yeah. So it's a name I gave myself. I was in middle school at the time. I grew up South City. I went to school out in West County. I was part of the DSEG program. And, just like absorbing all of the variety, just seeing and hearing it and, having conversations with my friends. And I spent a lot of time like trying to figure out why I got along with such a wide range of people. It's like, all right, why am I vibing with the sports jocks and the metal kids and the band nerds and the hip hop heads and the just everybody,
Right.
And when you have that age, it's natural for you to try to like figure out who you are. That's when it goes down, And so I've always been an artist. I've always like been interested in words and lyrics, and I would just come up with phrases and just be like, that's just what that is. Or just like titles for things, and just didn't know what it was for, but just know that I liked collecting them and having them.
Yeah.
And at some point, it was like some lower number and counting, and it was all based on like the different personalities I figured I had discovered, or like just like a code that I felt like I had cracked in order to connect with people. And eventually I just stopped at 18 because it looked good, sounded good to me. I didn't know much about it. Later on, as I got older, I started thinking about it. I'm like, that what's significant about the number 18 beyond what we all assume of that number and what that status means is, in the States here. I realized it's like the most diverse number there is. It's like the straightest number and the curviest number. And there's just like no way to argue that. There's no other number that does that,
right.
Just like by design, like how it looks. And, but anyway, I had stopped with the like personality thing because I was, good with myself. But I was still interested in art. Mm-hmm. And kind of like was really critical of this idea that when you study an artist, you at that age, you see what they're good at. That's like the thing. It's like, oh, well, that's Wayne Thiebaud. He paints cakes. It's like Picasso makes square faces.
Yeah.
And just not wanting that upon me. Like knowing that I was going to be dedicating my life to making art and not being able to just deal with the limits. I just didn't want to feel limited. I feel like there's enough of that as a black man, of course. Mm-hmm. And I think everyone has like their form of limitations, and some of us just feel it in certain ways or see it at certain times. But I just wanted to have a name that like represented, being able to do infinitely what I wanted to. So I came up with, 18 Accounting kind of merged from this personality thing to this genre and type of art making. So I was making beats back then, and I would have a name for making beats. I'd have a name for writing poetry, for photography or graphic design, and painting or illustration or rapping or whatever. And of course, that's absurd to have like expect anyone to try to keep up with all these aliases, and then this like collaboration that I would have, like if I made a sculpture, photographed it, and used it for the cover of a beat tape or something. So like 18 and counting became sort of the catch-all or the umbrella term for all of these different aliases that to me was my excuse to just be limitless in my creative exploration.
I love that, and that's important. I mean, I think that you could definitely tell that within what you do and what you put out into this world. I resonate 1,000 times with that. The genre-less, you don't want to be put into a genre thing. Really, genre is just something there for the music industry and not really anything else,
For sure.
And just everything that you said. I mean, you've hitting on it.
It ends up working in this cool way because I'm never offended by what anyone assumes of it. I've heard a lot of different angles. Sometimes people are just like, oh, well, like a black man that made it to adulthood. It's worth celebrating to some people, and that's like what the name has meant to them, and that's powerful. That's wasn't my plan, but that's like totally accepted.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like there's just people just have like these. It's universal, and it's a vague and universal enough name.
You got me thinking about it now in deep ways. Like you got like the one, right? So like the one of everybody's one, but then you have the 8, which is the eternity symbol. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So it's just like eternal one,
Yeah.
Eternal one. And count. You know what?
Yeah, and the counting doesn't have to just
genius,
be
man.
up, man.
Right.
Thank you. It doesn't have to just be numbers going up. You can count down. You can divide. You can multiply.
Right.
Like it just means movement, and yeah. I mean, it's like I've been using it since I was a child, and it hasn't faded. It still makes sense to me. Still rocking with it.
Awesome. So, when did you start doing music, and at that point in time, like when did you know it was going to be your thing? You're gonna do it full time and interject that into your life.
It was, I'd like to think about when I became critical of music as kind of a starting point, and that's something I've been thinking of more recently. And it's when I heard Aaliyah's "One in a Million" playing on the radio on the school bus, I was like, "Yo, this is." Hidden. It just did a different thing than every other song did, Mm-hmm. And that was a big moment for me. And when my guy Alex introduced me to Bjork's Homogenic, and Hunter being the first tune on there, I was like, if everybody loves beats and they listen to this, controversial, and that's what rap's supposed to be, but it's like if everybody's listening to this controversial music because the beat is tight, why don't they also vibe with this, know? So I felt like I became critical around 97, 98 when I think both of those came out in 97, if I'm not mistaken. One of them may have been 96.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was always like listening for why I liked things at that from those times on. And after that, like I started making beats with the PlayStation Music Generator. Was this situation that came out, and around that time, me and my friends were, just recording straight to tape. We'd put the cassette on the mantle. We'd get some instrumentals and just play some beats and just rap to it. And I never really thought of myself as like big on freestyling. I was just there to sort of add energy to it. Much prefer just writing and taking my time, like building up stories and developing wordplay. And so that was like middle school, seventh, eighth grade. Around the same time, I'd come up with the name 18 Accountant. And then I just realized that was my role. I was just there to make sure that there was a different spin put on everything. And I was never saying, oh, you were wrong for how you're doing it. It was just me saying, oh, well, let me make sure things are balanced out in a certain way.
Right.
And yeah, so I was, making beats all through high school, just kind of like freestyling with my dudes. And by the time I got to college, I went to school in Chicago, to School of the Art Institute of Chicago, and met more musicians. My guy Lauren and my guy Delore being the main two. And I just kind of stopped making beats because I felt like there were enough producers around me, and I focused more on lyrics. And, I was always interested in the engineering and mixing and recording side of things. But through college, it was lyric heavy. So I'd hit some open mics while I was in Chicago. And I was back and forth. I was in St. Louis and in Chicago all the time. I'd come back and do art sales, sell T-shirts and paintings and whatever. That's like how I got through it all. But things switched up once I left the Chicago scene and came to St. Louis. And all of a sudden, I didn't have my friends around that used to DJ the parties and put in the turntables in the cab ride and riding from the south side to the west side or the north side of Chicago.
Wow.
And so that's when I started DJing in St. Louis because. One, I missed a certain sound that I wanted to make sure, again, like I just wanted to make sure that certain balance was there in this city. And also just knew that it would be like a good way to get my foot in the door for anything else. If I was the DJ and then I decided to rap, who's going to stop me?
Right.
Where if I say, yo, I want to rap, and they're like, oh, we've never seen you rap before. We're good. It's like, all right. I just kind of knew. I just kind of read the scene at the time. And same thing, like, if I wanted to hang a sculpture from the ceiling of some venue, if I'm the DJ, I can do that. There's just something about it. There's just like a certain amount of power.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to me because of all the different art forms I've done, like DJing is the newest one to me.
Okay.
Like a lot of people know me as a DJ because it's just, it's just a flexible position to be in. You can play any type of event and just like catch the vibe because there's trillions, if not more, songs and music out there.
Right.
So yeah, I guess it's like I realized it whenever I saw that there was room to have conversation with people and to kind of hear their perspectives and like question their perspectives because sometimes people don't think about it, just what they're absorbing and what they're taking in and what kind of person that makes them. And sometimes people are so confident in how they think and where they are that they really do just need to be shaken up and sort of challenged and spoken to. So, yeah, I always think of it as like when I knew I was conscious of what I liked and why I liked, or what I did not like and why I did not like it.
That's beautiful, man. So would you say, once again, this is a spiritual podcast. We're talking a lot about music. Would you say that you have any spiritual aspects in your music, or have you brought any of your beliefs, your personal beliefs, into your art? I feel like a lot of the times that's kind of like a duh thing, but some people, they leave those things separate. So
that's real. It's interesting. Like I feel there's times where I just have revelations and it's just things that I think about. I'm like, oh, that's how the world works, or oh, that's why I carry myself the way that I do. I don't have like a specific spiritual culture that I subscribe to. And I think that's part. Just because who I am, I like being flexible. I like hearing and respecting it all, But it's tough to say. I try to make sure every line I say, and sometimes it's impossible. Sometimes you got to say something kind of wacky, something kind of loose, something controversial, something just to like,
definitely,
to remind the listener that they're listening to a song. But I mean, my initial way of thinking of it is like every line is a heavy hitter. Like every line is somebody's mantra, and I hope that's why people resonate with my music. I mean, of course, like production and all those things are important, and like creating certain feelings and setting atmospheres for people is important. But I really do feel like what I enjoy most about, especially hip hop, especially rap, is all of the different perspectives that you can throw in. It's like the word count is higher than any other genre, and that's somehow like not spoken about enough,
Definitely not.
Or even like the ability to play roles and play sides. You know, like you can set yourself up in a godless position and rap from that, even though that's not who you are, but it's just a game position, just to gain perspective and to sort of explain things in different ways. Or you can, some people set themselves up as God, you know, and there's a lot of, I think there's a lot of room in it. But as far as like spiritually, just like what I feel and what I believe, I really try to make every line like something that somebody is living by. If it's not me, it's somebody out there can like catch on to it and be like, that's my whole life right there.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So you said that you don't necessarily subscribe to any one belief. Have you done a lot of research into the multiple, belief systems, whether it's anything from any Abrahamic view of Christianity or Hebrewism or Islam, all the way to we live in a computerized world? Have you dove into what has sparked your interest, if any at all?
I haven't gotten into like researching any particular ones, but I just because I love hearing about it.
Right.
There's a lot of things that, one of the things I'm tough on myself about is like, it's like I don't feel like I'm ever wasting my time, but why don't I know about X, Y, or Z? But I think because I have that thought, because I have that I guess worry, I really enjoy hearing everybody. Like I just like being introduced to things because it's more perspectives. It's like just hearing and feeling what people are passionate about. Like my family went to church. I went to church with them, and I didn't hate it. Yeah. It just never caught on to it. Like I don't know if it was a memory thing or what, but I enjoyed parts of just like the social sides of it and like how good it made people feel. And I'm like, there's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do to denounce that. But at the same time, I also feel like there's a lot of dark that comes from that too. There's a lot of people taking advantage of it or playing roles, and I think that's not what's kept me away from it, but I do think that is what keeps me like on edge about staying solid on who I am. Is like not being able to potentially add to any of the dark sides that's going on, and like how people take advantage of or manipulate one another.
It's easy to fall into a hole of any which one,
Yeah, no matter which one, but at the same time, I do believe that like entertainment is a powerful thing. Like if someone is brainwashed or if someone is being taken advantage of, it's like, well, they're gonna spend that money on some other form of that anyway. So it's like I just try to I see the value of all of it, and I just try to like use them all to keep myself aligned and really like humbled, because I know that there's like huge histories and like positive completions and positive ongoings that have occurred from every religion. I do find myself enjoying just going down rabbit holes of different cults that have gone on, that have happened over the years. And to me, I find those interesting because I like to think about why they're different, or really like how influential they are. I've been like recently. I've been the two that I've been sort of diving into is the Heaven's Gate, and Father Divine, and they're both very different. But the Heaven's Gate and its significance of technology based they communicated and found each other through the internet. It was like one of the first cults to
that mass gaining through
email.
Yeah, through email.
And that's wild. Like we think about MySpace showing up and everybody turning up and being able to like be heard worldwide. It's kind of the same thing. Yeah. And Father Divine is one that I've been really interested in because of really kind of like the racial implications of who he was, in like the 20s and 30s, and building a gathering, and also like often like when someone gets in the cult category, it's because there was some mass suicides or there was some pedophilia going on. And like he somehow like checks out without any of those things. And and has also influenced like just language and slang and like speeching patterns and like common preacher cadence.
Yeah.
Was him. He kind of started that. I think about him as being in interracial relationships, marriages, in the 30s, and how wild that is,
Yeah.
and his how would I put it, his like monetary givings to the community in Harlem. And there's this great story I was reading about. And I'm sure it's on Wikipedia, but he would throw these gatherings, like people would gather at his home in upstate New York, and there was like noise complaints. People would call the police. Like, that's common. We throwing a party,
Right.
getting down. Like, somebody's gonna have a problem with that.
Especially back then.
Somebody's gonna have a problem with that, especially if you're black. Like, still,
True.
but especially then.
Yeah.
And the shit's so dope to me. And so, the police come up, they round up everybody, they arrest everybody, and there's like, some like low amount. There's like some like $5 fine for every person or something. And he pulls up to the jail to bail everybody out with a $500 bill because they had those back then. And he pulls up with a $500 bill, and they couldn't give him change. Like, the jail just didn't have enough dough to give him change. And it's just, I don't know. I just think there's something really powerful about and a lot of people, when they think of religions, they think of a certain sound, like a certain genre, a certain,
Chant or mantra. Or
like, and that's like the spirit coming out in musical form.
Right.
Everyone has it.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of cool to think of Father Divine as, in a weird way, like kind of a precursor or like an influence on the flashy money rap, like,
Wow.
It's all about cadence, it's all about making up words, and then at
Very
the end of
true.
the day, I've got my communities back and I got money.
Yeah.
We see that all the time in rap songs. And I know they overlap for various different reasons, but I don't know, that's a recent one that I got into. And as dark as it is, Father Divine was a big influence on Jim Jones. And as Jim Jones was coming into significance, he got a lot of ideas and like even tried like to recruit Father Divine's then dwindling following. Like, towards the end of his life, Jim Jones came in and tried to swoop up his people. So I don't know. There's a lot of racially, like, what's being taken from where.
Yeah.
And where these ideas are coming from and who's running with them and who's more prolific, all of those things kind of are just always kind of in the back of my mind, especially when you start comparing the evils versus the goods,
Right.
or the underground versus the mainstream. Like, it's easy for me to draw those comparisons, and it'll just always be compelling and mesmerizing to me.
Yeah, I think like with cults, it's like it all depends because there's so many different kinds. But I think it's always based off of some sort of like narcissism or egoism,
Yeah.
of one general person or a couple different people.
Or a network of people that's
right.
willing to point,
Exactly.
point at the one.
This is the way kind of thing. And that's I mean, you say that and you're like, well, what's the difference of that and all these other beliefs in every single one,
Popularity,
Right.
And I can't help but to think about like why people listen to some types of music, but they don't listen to other types, or not necessarily some types, but some artists, but not others.
Right.
To some people, it's only a good song if everybody knows it.
Yep.
If it is successful, or that artist is only good if they are successful. And everybody's got their own thing that motivates them, and success is obvious. It's like, that person's getting it. I'm going to celebrate them getting it by like embodying that tone. And there's just like some small cutty religions out there that get called cults because of it.
Right. And do you feel like, in saying that, do you feel like people go in listening to music with expectation, and if that expectation's not met, then they don't like it, or if this album doesn't sound like the last, there's that expectation there, and I speak about a lot of expectations and everything. I feel like the release of of that opens you up for anything, you know, and dissolves a lot of your suffering in the world if you stop your expectations on
sure.
life, relationships, and whatnot, right? But that goes with music as well, you know. You want, you know, the next Kanye album to sound like the first Kanye album kind of thing, you know. That's an expectation.
Because it made you feel a way, and
Made
you
you
don't
feel
want
a
to
way.
lose that, or you want more of it.
Yep. And if it doesn't, then you're kind of like, but you're not given that. You call yourself a true fan, but you're not necessarily given that. Where is this artist right now, and why did they put this out the way they did? In saying that, let's transition, because I heard that you got an EP.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that, man.
Yeah, so it's a funny thing. It's a funny thing to me because it's a new EP, but they're old songs to me. 4 tracks, you know, written, in some cases recorded 2012, 2016, and then 2 from 2018. And yeah, I don't know. I've been thinking about why they're just now coming out. And there's a lot of reasons for that. I think like what I've been doing the last year, musically, like mostly engineering and production-wise, I haven't been rapping as much. I'm like, yeah, but I got bars. Let's go ahead and put these things out, you know?
Right.
I've been working on like stage presentation and like putting together like really complex bands and never showing up to any stage with the same gear or with the same set. And I've never done that. That's not common, I'm learning. Like a lot of people are like, yo, this is what we got. That's what cracks. Let's hit it, you know?
Right.
I'm like, no, we should be on the edge while we're up here. You know, that's just kind of how I lead it. So, you know, so in my mind, all of these songs, people have heard them. But in actuality, only the people that have been in those rooms while I've performed them have heard them.
It's crazy how that works, huh?
Right? It's like total like blinders on of how most people get known. It's like you release the music, so folks in Istanbul can hear it.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So, and really, like I kind of reached a sort of panic, you know, this year or whenever I decided, and it was, well, I've got all these. I've been really into modular synthesis lately, and just sort of learning that process and a lot of improvised recordings that then become the songs, you know, whether I'm by myself or jamming with someone else. And as I started thinking about this new stuff I was going to release, I'm like, well, what happens if I release these old songs after these newer songs? That's going to confuse people. So it's like not necessarily a point, like lyrically, it's not necessarily a point of, they're my words, so I live by them, but it's not necessarily what I just made, so I'm trying to get that out there. It's I'm ready to open the door on this new shit.
Yeah.
So I got to release this old shit, so I'm not thinking about it so much.
Exactly.
And there's something to be said about clarity. Like I'm pretty experimental on stage. I leave a lot of open room for improvisation and a lot of vocal effects. And people have seen and enjoyed my shows, and I think with any rap show, like you get as hype, like you got 50 or 500 people or whatever in front of you, you're gonna be hype and you tend to yell, you know. And I tend to lean sometimes on some shows. It's way more punk rock than it is hip hop, you know.
Yeah.
It just goes that way. And so I don't know. I just felt like I owed it to myself and really like the fans, like people who like I feel like there's people who probably like my music but don't exactly know why they like my music, or they just enjoy the little chunks that I kind of leak here and there of things.
Right.
So yeah, I just had to get that out there so I could get into who I am now, and so I can write more lyrics and like check. Like I kind of write in a way that is more like collection of ideas. You know, conversation I had, something that was intriguing, borrowing a quote from somebody, or writing down something that I said to someone that was powerful, and then I lose them, and then I go and find them, and then I put them together in places and try to categorize them and, you know, put together themes of songs or feelings. So, yeah, it's called, the EP is called There Are No Rules in Space, which wasn't a title that, I'm kind of one of those people when there's a title that hits, it's like I've got to fulfill the power of that title. Like I got to make work that works with this.
Yeah, because that's already fire. I'm already like, all right, where's it at?
Yeah, right up. Yeah, thank you. And I mean, and it's I love it because my guy Delore came up with that title. Like we met in '05 in Chicago, going to school. He's been in and out of St. Louis. He's from Memphis. So we just we just naturally have gone through these waves of like not being close and working together and being distant and just kind of sharing those experiences. And we're always both making music and taking our time with it. But he's much more advanced on the instrumental technical side of things. So I've always kind of like leaned on, like we're homies, but I've always leaned on him when it's time to release something or when I'm about to try something new.
Yeah.
I go, yo, what do you think about this idea? What do you think about that? Oh, I'm gonna step over here. He's like one of my I tell people all the time, if I had to get to the moon tomorrow, I'd call him first.
That's beautiful.
And one of those times years ago, I asked him something, and I was like, yo, can I do this? And his response was, there are no rules in space. So I'm like,
you're like, all right, let me get to what you say again.
Well, let's get it, And I've always held on to that one, and I'm not even sure if he remembered it for real up until I re-mentioned it to him, a month ago when I'm like, yo, I'm ready to get these old songs out, and I just think, I just thought the process, my expectations of how you go about making an album or an EP was different.
Yeah.
My thoughts were like, all right, well, that's my dude. Eventually, we're gonna put out an EP together. And we're gonna sit and record that. It's like when we'll be in town together for a stretch or whatever, and it just never happened. There's still time for that to happen, but these are all songs that he had produced. One of them solo, one of them with me, one of them with Louis James, and one of them with Lauren. So it's kind of an even spread of like how the songs were created, and yeah, I just. It was just time to release this old stuff. And, people remind me, it's like, yeah, it's going to be new to everybody else. It doesn't matter how old you are. If it hits, it hits. And if, it's just like proving that it's timeless. And I like to think about, especially as a DJ, how often do I hear a song that's new to me that came out 3 decades ago?
Right.
All the time.
Yeah.
Probably more than I hear shit that came out that year or 2 years or even within the last 10, It just always happens that way. So, yeah, that phrase is just always like a big encouragement because I'm one of those people like I'm one of those think of the worst case scenario and ascend from there. Like that's kind of how I enter every situation. I'm like, oh well, what are they gonna say or what are they gonna hear? Someone's gonna hear the nastiest thing I say on the EP, but they won't hear the most brilliant and enlightening thing.
Right.
Maybe they're trying to take me down for some reason. I think about that all the time. And in some cases, I think it slows me down, but really just keeps me patient. It gives me a lot of time to make sure that it's good. It gives me a lot of time to make sure that it's sonically on point. But yeah, there's some, one of the tunes on the EP is it's called Hate Rap. That's just what me and my dudes did. In Chicago, we would just freestyle and it would just get so absurd, but you just had to just keep talking about what you hate, And when you're freestyling, it gets like, you just say anything. It almost becomes comedy, but it also becomes like a release, you know? And we would just roll up on people at the bar, at the party. We all knew what was going on, and then somebody would join like, yo, this is on. Like people would just, even if they couldn't rap or never rapped before, they would just want to get in and just let it off,
Yeah.
And at the same time, there'd be other people. There'd be the protesters. He'd be like, "What about love? We can't. What if we can't?" They're just hearing the word hate and how powerful that is, but they're not hearing people really let go of their frustrations and kind of dive into it. So, I was just like, we all see the news. We all know what's going on. We all know how people are treating each other out here. So I was just like, man, are people really ready to even hear the word hate this often? And almost every time I think, and the song's been released. That's the other thing. That song has been released back in 2012 on Delore and Lauren's Drugs Project, Part 4. They just kind of had this really elusive, just sort of more old school, like mixtape style.
So it's not the same
release.
version, or is it?
It is the same.
Same version?
It's the same one, yeah. And in fact, I made a different one called Hate Teen because I wanted to have a hate rap that existed, that's like, to me, that's just like, that's just, that was the vibe. And I wanted to have that out there. So I made Hate Teen as an alternative to, it's technically untitled, but I just called it hate rap just because that's just what we were doing, just to kind of title the act. And And yeah, I would just like I didn't want to disrespect the fact that they had already released this song, and I kind of wanted to keep it elusive and it has a cult following. You know, there's people that know like that. Those two are more globally known artists than I am.
Yeah.
But there's people who know my music and around the world who like, yo, that's that song. That's Finally Here. Tight, you know, and that's
It's crazy, right?
2012. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it's been like really already it's been really rewarding to just let that song out. And also, like, I've just been doing these things live. Like, I haven't given anyone a chance to hear these songs when they're driving home from the show. Mm-hmm. What's wrong with me? You know what I mean?
Well, that's what's funny about you. You know what I mean? Like you say, you are you as a DJ and everything that you do. Like a lot of people will throw that into digital and get it out as fast as possible. But you're like, you're gonna come see me live.
Yeah.
You know, and get the whole thing. You know, and that's one thing that I personally have loved about seeing you. And you're right. Like you know, I think I walked into you did something at the Square building one time.
Yeah.
A while back, I can't remember what it was.
Was it
But like it was kind of punk rock. Like you went through these layers, you know. Where at a certain point in time, I'm like, all right, let's start a pit or something. You know what I mean? Let's get this going. You know.
Yes.
This so many things. But yeah, man, and so that's something that I've definitely have taken from you. You know. And your vibe is that like you're like you're gonna come see this, you know, especially in a time where everything is online, everything is easily accessible. It's really refreshing to see an artist like that keeps it that way, you know, that keeps it like you gotta see it live. It's gonna be different every time, and that's what you're gonna get because this is me kind of thing.
Man, thank you. Like a lot of it, I've been realizing why that is, and it's like I'm not. People ask me like, "Oh, well, what do you play? Oh, you're a musician. What do you play?" And I hardly know what to say to them. Mm-hmm. You know, I play electronics. Mm-hmm. I play cables and switches. You know, and it's. I mean, I've always been. You know, I was in band when I was in middle and high school, but I never it never stuck with me. You know, I enjoyed it, but it just never continued on. You know, I was just kind of there for the perspective, and when I meet people who, I mean, I'll tell you, like, really what changed my sense of value for myself as a musician was being invited to play with Down Stereo, which was a trio. I got Cannon, who's my drummer now. Like, we just put out the live concert show with the Sinkhole and Art City AV.
Awesome.
So that's like so great because we've been playing together for a bit, but that's our first like video recording. And Cannon's absurd. But Cannon was in Down Stereo. My guy Gavin played bass, and Nate played keys. And when I saw them at Delmar Lounge for the first time, I was just like, I was just blown away because it was just so grimy. And they'd play something beautiful. You would maybe recognize the song if they were doing like a jacked cover or something. Mm-hmm. It just left me with a lot of questions, you know. And they did this thing where they would almost be out of the beat more than they were in the beat. And then when it comes in, it's like, what's going on? So I was just so impressed by and those dudes have been playing music together since they were children, you know.
Wow.
And at some point, you know, so at that time, this was like 2011, I believe, maybe 2012. They were at Delmar. They were at Delmar Lounge, and I would DJ at Pinup Bowl every other Sunday, and they were there every Sunday. So I'd go down there and check them out, and then I'd go and do my thing. Well, they invited me to be in the group, you know, and we shared a weekly at Atomic Cowboy, and I would DJ, they'd play their set, I'd play in between, they'd play theirs, I'd close out the night. And eventually it was just like, well, now I'm rapping over the track, so now I'm adding sounds to their set. Mm-hmm. And I was just so, I don't know what the word, I don't know. So I guess it just pumped me up to have to step my game up in some way to be able to hang with them. Like, to be valued by people of that caliber, told me, I'm like, all right, well, I got something. You know,
Right.
sometimes it's just the ear. Sometimes people are like, oh, well, you know how to mix things on the spot. But I just had to find like a pocket of my own that matched the value that was projected upon me.
Right.
Because to me, I'm like, oh, these are just songs I like, and I can't help but to play them this way because these songs are great, and I got to deserve delivering these things and getting the credit and the clout from things that other people have recorded and spaces that other people have built. You know, I think I've got enough respect for like creating things on your own that if I'm involved in something else, I have to match that caliber, you know?
Right.
And then just musically, you know, like I'm just not I can't jam on the keys, but I got hella keys, you know, like
Yeah.
I just like collecting gear and sounds and designing it. So I'm just kind of been thinking about the like what that means, you know, to be brought up by someone that is clear, like I would say more talented than me, but it's just a different type
Right.
of talent.
Yeah, it's how do you gauge that? You
Yeah.
know, how do you gauge talent?
You know, like
Yeah,
I said,
makes
I'm
sense.
on that negative first and climb out of it kind of thing. So it
Yeah.
helps me to be able to say things like that. It like motivates me and sort of adds, you know, it makes it an obstacle, you know?
Right.
Because if it's just like a slide downhill and it's just all fun, like that fun is going to get boring.
Right, man. That's for sure. You get in your head a lot as an artist too, you know, just getting lost in so much of the muck and not realizing that people just want to listen to your music. You know, if they like you, they like you. If they don't, they're gonna find something not to like you about, regardless of how you put out, you know, what you put out and whatnot. So
Even if they love it, they'll
even
not
if
like
they love
you just
it,
because they love it.
Exactly.
My ex likes that song, and so do I, so I hate it. It's like, what?
Yep. But like, you know, back to your EP, you did artwork around it too, because I just found out that you're a visual arts teacher.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So my thing, you know, I just sometimes I feel like I can plan the hell out of some things, and it won't go as well as if I just left some open room for it. With this EP, I was just like, I just need to get this thing out there. In my mind, I'm like, all right, I just need to drop this so I can put something else out next month.
Yeah.
And that was like the main reason why. I'm like, I got to do something with these songs. They're too good to not be out there. I need to re-record these vocals so they're like all cohesive and well recorded. And you know, once I do that, once it's there, I'm like, okay, well, how do I come up with the excuse to keep telling people to check this out? So I'm not just posting the same flyer. And so I was just like, well, I need something to happen. And like I said, I'm kind of motivated by people who seem to be better at me, and I'm also just like, yo, if it's real easy, like there's people who just catch tags on the internet and got like hella followers, right?
Right.
I'm like, man, I can do that. I deserve that, and I'm gonna do it in a different way. So let's lean into some of that. Let's pull some of that that ease, right? But it's still also gonna make me better, and it's gonna be, you know, it's gonna make me better at my hand styles, and I just have to have something physical with like any serious release, you know. If I wanted to press this to vinyl, I could, and maybe I will someday, but I just didn't have the time to wait for that.
Right.
I've already made tapes. I don't feel like doing that now. I've sold bricks with a download code, you know. And for this one, I just really wanted to celebrate like the lyrical side of it, and also celebrate like the human physical side of what it is to write music. I got so many notebooks just full, and that's not a thing that you really see anymore. Like, it's not that it's gone, but you see a lot of people like taking notes on their phone or like reading the lyrics from the phone. It's way more convenient. You can do it on the airplane.
Yep.
But since I have this like long history of writing and thinking about style and getting, you know, consistent at it, I decided to make those the physical objects. And it's like, I didn't plan on it that way. I wasn't thinking that at first, but like once all the recordings were done, I was just like, let's make it something that's actually in the world. Let's make it something tangible. A teacher told me in college, where I was working on a bunch of character works and trying to tell stories with these sort of abstract characters and building up these scenarios and making paintings from them. And Candida Alvarez was the teacher who told me this. And she goes, you just got to make it believable. You just got to make this believable. And I'm like, word. You know, I can boil down a lot of like big moments, you know, big educational moments from teachers just be like one quote, one little thing that they said, and that was a big one for me. Like that told me like sometimes making it believable is being repetitive and just like not getting out of the way and keeping it fresh.
Right.
And it's you then believe it because it's not getting boring. And every time there's something else that someone else can grab onto, you know, and of course it's like we were talking about the ASMR thing later, you know, earlier.
Yeah.
And like people, that's a very calming thing for a lot of people to see and to like hear the sounds of like fairly normal things.
Right. I feel like speaking of ASMR, I feel like I'm doing that right now because shout out to the sponsor, Mighty Kind.
Air.
Seltzer, cannabis seltzer. Got me feeling pretty chill right now. So I'm like, you know, making all these ASMR vibes going on right now, you know, kind of thing. Anyway, I took that off case, you know, shout out to our sponsor one more time.
Oh yeah, those are homies.
But I noticed like that's now that you're saying all this, you know, because I was looking at the art and I saw the 2012 and everything, and I was like, wait a minute, like why is the 2012 in there?
Yeah.
But now you're saying that, I'm like, okay,
Because that's when I wrote it.
right.
You know, and I wanted people to know that, right? To me, I'm like, oh well, if somebody hears this and they like, oh, what is this? I at least got the excuse like, oh, that's old. That's not me anymore. You know, I got it's like a back pocket. It's like a little escape route, right?
Yeah.
And it was just something more interesting. Like it ended up just kind of buying me more time too, because I'm like, well, it's kind of hard to avoid the limitations of the format that you're releasing it, right? If you've got 30 minutes on the tape, chances are you want to fill as much of those 30 minutes. You got a 1 minute slap on the internet. You want to get as close to that as possible. And like man, I've been thinking about this so much. Like I want to do these lyric posters, and there's just more letters to lyrics than there are to titles, right? So when you do a title, and it's like, oh man, I've done like sculpture, like hand carved sculpture, text based things, and projected text, and spoken text and readings and just like all these different things. And the one thing that always gets me is there is no consistent significance. There's no consistent value that tells you that something is more valuable than the other in terms of like just one line phrases. You can have 10 characters in a phrase and it can be as powerful as one with 78.
Right.
There's nothing. So if like, man, this is hitting, that's a lot of letters. I got to write all those, huh? You know, oh, this is hitting. That's not a lot of letters. I got to make this look more interesting than it is.
Right.
It's, I don't know. I just love like drawing those connections between the idea and like, and making it believable. And for some people that helps give them room to sort of dive into it. And it's low budget, it's simple, it's like really, it's kind of guttural. I know guttural is usually kind of a grimier word, but it is that, you know, because we all relate to writing, if we can or if we cannot, or how well we can, or how we're going to compare those who are good at it.
Right.
And there's also something about rubbing in the words. It's like I'm not just rapping because it's easy or because I think it's cool. In some ways, yes, those are the cases, but I just got things to say. That's, you know, and sometimes writing it out is what's going to drive it home for folks.
Definitely. And you know, possibly just release it out of you too, you know?
Yeah.
That's at least how I am as a writer, you know. It's just, to me, I have these emotions. I have to release them, you know. I'm big on meditation, and a lot of the times that's where everything comes up in my mind, you know, of song ideas that are so vivid, you know, that I can literally just, you know, right there, you know, I can throw the drums, bass, guitar, keys, whatever the case is, you know, lyrics and all that, and it's out in 30 minutes kind of thing. Sometimes it's not like that. Sometimes it's a year later, 3 years later, and I'm still like, I don't know what to do with this, you know.
But you want to make it worth it. You feel it.
Exactly.
And it just hasn't
evolved yet, you know, kind of thing. So everything that you're saying, I'm like, oh my God, I feel like I'm like, it's a mirror right here.
Oh yeah.
But that's a musician thing. It's an artist thing, you know. So I greatly appreciate you coming on this show, man. It's special. I've been really enjoying this talk with you. How can people find you? Where can we find this EP? What's all your links, all your tags, and all that stuff?
Yeah, I'm pretty straightforward. 18 and counting, no spaces. capitalize that C. You know, so on Instagram, Facebook, that's there. 18andcounting.com is the website. I've had that for years and years. The EP is up on my Bandcamp. It's on Spotify. It's on all the streaming services. So, you know, it's like one of those things where, like, just look for it the same way you'd find someone else, you know. Sometimes it's that search and that final find is what, I don't know, is what makes it feel good when you finally get to it, you know.
Yep.
But yeah, on the Bandcamp in particular, I know we were talking a little bit about the posters and the writing. I'm going to have, or I do have at this point, but it's continuing. It's kind of one of those things where I'm just going to sort of keep refilling it. But I'll be writing out the lyrics of the songs and just like making one-off posters and doing that as a pay your own, pay what you want. The same way it'd be like, oh yeah, download it and put money in if you want. I'm just going to take these posters, knock them out, do some video recordings of them, but picking some of my favorite lyrics, but then also having other people choose them. So you can hit the Bandcamp and say, yo, this phrase is really resonating with me.
Yeah.
Put in the request. I'll make a poster for it. I'll probably make 3, give you a choice. So that's just like another way that I really want to like connect with people. So the Bandcamp's gonna, I guess it's like a little more interactive. It's like something you could tap into and sort of shape the, the physical merch for the project. Yeah. Where everywhere else you could just stream it and bump it, but that Bandcamp's got some you in it, you know.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, you could, like you said, you can leave comments. You can do, pay whatever you want, and then it leaves that little profile picture, whoever commented, so you can even see who your fans are and everything. That's a dope thing. Yeah.
And I was thinking, like take it a step further. Like if someone comes through and they say, hey, I really like when you said this in this song. I'll make a few and then I put the other ones online and then say, hey, this whoever requested this song or requested these phrases, they got theirs. If you're feeling it, you can get these too, or then give them a shout out. I don't know. It just feels like it has, more legs to it, and that's just something I just thought of as I was working on it, like what it could be. I'm like, well, why shouldn't it be that? So let's make it that.
That's dope. Well, once again, I appreciate you greatly for being on this episode, Mind, Body, and Monkh.
Appreciate you, man.
Yeah, I'd love to work with you in the future. We'll get to that, though. Besides that, everybody watching, we appreciate you as well. And go get this man's EP, especially on Bandcamp, y'all. Peace.
So what it comes down to, you see, is basically this. Just in the same way that the authority of the Guru is your authority. You did it. So the place where you are in life is where you've put yourself. And just as on the surface of the sphere, every point may be regarded as the center of the surface, so every place may be regarded as the